This is going to be a simple install video for ComfyUI, specifically catered to getting you set up with AnimateDiff. Now, I want to just review the ComfyUI repo page so that you can see what it's about. It is a node-based workflow for stable diffusion, and there actually is support for AMD GPUs as well as Mac Silicon. Although this video will be specifically catered to NVIDIA users and Windows users. But the Linux install is pretty much the same. Just, when you set up your VE&V, make sure you change your commands so that they work appropriately for it. If you have any questions on that, just comment down below. I have my folder set up for the tutorial. And inside that folder, I have resources, which is going to be your checkpoints, motion LoRa's, motion modules, VAE, and workflow. And all that will make sense in a moment as we start working. But let's get it started. So we're going to head to the tutorials.comfyui. You can name your directory whatever you want. And in the address bar, you would put CMD. Now inside that directory, because that's what we just did, we opened up the command line inside that directory. What we're going to do is we are going to create a virtual environment. So we would just do python -m venv. So now that that's set up, the next thing we're going to do is activate our virtual environment. To activate, we just do venv/scripts, and I press tab there to autocomplete and activate. So now that that's activated, we're going to git clone the ComfyUI repository. Now I have it in my notes, but you can find it by just going to the ComfyUI page and copying there. So git clone and then press enter. And what that did is that copied ComfyUI into our folder. So now that we have ComfyUI, we want to start moving some things into their appropriate places. Specifically, at the moment, that'll be the models and the VAE, so our stable diffusion checkpoints and our VAEs. I'm just going to open my resources folder on the side and make it clear for you guys what's being done. And I'm going to open the checkpoints folder. Now in ComfyUI, we're going to navigate to models and checkpoints, and we're going to drop our checkpoints in. Now the checkpoints just need to be any stable diffusion 1.5 checkpoint. So I have 2 checkpoints here. You can download any checkpoint you want from civitai or get it from Hugging Face, or you could just use the base stable diffusion 1.5 checkpoint. A checkpoint is essentially like a style. It allows you to generate images in a specific style, like anime type of images or realistic images or 3D render looking images. It all depends on the checkpoint that you install. Now the next thing we want to do is move our VAE into the appropriate folder, which is under models and VAE. Now VAE is sort of like it handles the color composition of our image. So it'll change the way the colors look, in the sense of, one VAE could be more saturated while another VAE could make everything more look like it has a red tint. All depends on how the person trained it. So next thing up, we want to pip install torch. So we will just copy this here. Now if you are looking for the command in the ComfyUI repo, it is under NVIDIA here, and it's this line right here. So copy, paste, and install. This will take a bit of time. That's all dependent on your internet connection and speed. So, just be patient, let it do its thing. So once Torch is finished installing, the next thing we want to do is cd into ComfyUI, because remember, we are currently inside the tutorials Comfy folder, which holds the ComfyUI folder. So we want to head in there. So cd change directory into ComfyUI, as the name implies. So now that we are in there, there is a folder, and it is requirements.txt. This folder literally just has things that we need to get ComfyUI to work properly. So the way that we're going to install that is we're going to run this command here, pip install -r requirements.txt. So pip install -r requirements. Oh, forgot the requirements.txt, and that's going to install the remaining things that we're missing to get ComfyUI started. All right, now that that's done, a very fast recap. We have created a virtual environment and activated it. We git cloned ComfyUI. We placed our checkpoints and our VAEs in the models folder in their respective directories. We installed Torch, and we handled our pip install for the requirements folder. The next thing we want to do before we start ComfyUI is install the ComfyUI-Manager. Why? Because it's going to make things a lot easier for beginners, as well as it makes it really easy to just copy paste workflows into ComfyUI, and it'll handle telling you, hey, you're missing this, this is where you can install it, which you'll see in a moment. So I'm going to head to this page, the ComfyUI-Manager repo. I'm going to copy the link to clone it, and instead of cloning it in this root directory, we're going to cd, change directory into custom nodes. And we can see that directory in the ComfyUI repo if you go, or directory inside of the custom nodes folder. So all we're going to do is git clone and paste, and you'll notice that that is now inside of our custom nodes. So the next thing we want to do is actually run ComfyUI. We're going to cd ... That's essentially saying we want to change directory by going up, so out of the directory that we're in, into its parent directories, which is ComfyUI. The next thing we want to do is python main.py, and this is finally starting up ComfyUI for us. Now it's installing ComfyUI-Manager because although we cloned the repo, we never installed it. ComfyUI manages that for us. So we copy this link here, paste it into a new tab, and we are officially inside of ComfyUI. Now, I have a workflow folder that I will be supplying with the tutorial. It is inside of my resources folder, inside workflow, and it is from the AnimateDiff evolved repo. Big shout out to Kasinkadink. He is awesome, or she, I'm not sure what their gender is, sorry, but they are very, very smart, incredibly smart, and they are in the Banadoko server on Discord, and the work they do is amazing. We are going to take our workflow file, and we are literally going to drag and drop it inside of ComfyUI. Hoop, era, big red nodes, nothing to worry about. This is why we installed ComfyUI-Manager. So pretty much the ComfyUI-Manager allows us to install missing nodes in a very simple fashion. So here it's telling us it can't find this node, this node, this node, and this node. All you have to do is you're going to click Manager on the right here, and inside Manager, there is an option that says Install Missing Custom Nodes. And look at that. It brings up every single repo that has the nodes that we're missing. And we can even go as far as these blue words here. We can click them, they're links, and it brings us to the actual node pages that we are missing. So we know what it is that we're installing, how it works, and maybe even find some workflow examples. And lo and behold, one of them is Kasinkadink's AnimateDiff evolved repo, which is what we will be using. So all we're going to do is click install on the right here for each individual unit. And notice when installing on the bottom here, it tells us in order to apply these custom nodes, we have to restart ComfyUI. So we are going to do that. We head to our terminal. We are going to Control-C, and we are going to python main.py again, which is just starting ComfyUI up again. And notice that it is installing the nodes that we just added to the system. And for clarity, if you look into our custom nodes folder, you will notice that we now have these repos. So everything installed, we can restart and notice that the nodes are not giving us any kind of error anymore. But there's still something we're missing, and that's that we haven't actually placed our motion modules and our motion LoRa's into their proper folders. Now, motion modules and motion LoRa's have to do with AnimateDiff. So it mentions here how to use them, where to download them. So you see you have your Google Drive, Hugging Face, civitai links and whatnot. But I am just going to show you very fast where these items will go. So inside of our custom nodes folder, let me find our resources. So notice I have motion LoRa and motion modules here. Inside the AnimateDiff evolved folder, you're going to enter, you're going to head to models, and the models are going to be our motion LoRa. Now I have two here. I will link down below as to where to find them. This is a new model that was made. I'm sorry, the creator's name has left me. I'm very sorry. I will make sure to credit them in the description down below. And the V2 motion LoRa from the original creators of AnimateDiff. Now this is a great starting place, the V2 model. It has great results. This new and improved model is really good. I've only started testing it as of last night, ran a few tests, not much, but going forward, next thing we want to do is move our motion LoRas into their respective folder. So again, that's ComfyUI-Animate-Diff involved, motion LoRa, and we are going to take our motion LoRas and paste them in. So now we want to refresh the ComfyUI page, and now you notice that when we click these nodes, our models are present. So how does this work, this specific node layout? Now there's a lot to ComfyUI, and as far as I'm concerned as a beginner, you shouldn't be worried about it. First, you should be worried about just getting comfortable with this node setup, because this is AnimateDiff Evolved. This is the thing that you see people creating these amazing animations with. So first and foremost, we want to load our checkpoint. To load a checkpoint is just as I said, is to load our style. So we'll start off with the Hello Young model that I supplied. Next thing is we have clip skip. Usually a good clip skip is -2. It works really good with ComfyUI, or sorry, not ComfyUI, AnimateDiff, but usually on your civitai page and your model, the model that you're downloading, the checkpoint, it will note to you what the clip skip value should be. Now we have our seed. Our seed is what controls our generation. Just like in the CLI and just like in auto 1111, if your seed is random, it is going to generate a new different generation every single time that you generate. Versus if it's fixed, it will stay on the same generation unless you change some kind of parameter. We've explained what is the checkpoint, we explained our seed, and we explained our clip skip. Next, we have our VAE. Now, we're using Barry's Mix for my download, but you can use any VAE that you want. The VAE, as I said before, it just controls the color composition of your output. Next, we have our motion LoRa, or rather our motion module. Our motion module controls how AnimateDiff animates our images, how it interprets the next frames in our images. Now the next thing that we want is our generation size. Now notice from the AnimateDiff-CLI-Prompt-Travel tutorials that I had, if you watch those, I was usually generating at 512 with a height of 768. So I'm going to generate with that size just for clarity. Now we have two prompts here, and notice that they are keyframed. We have 0 and we have 15. So 0 means that at the very first frame of our animation, this is what ComfyUI is going to be attempting to generate. One girl solo with cherry blossoms, a hanimi, pink flowers, white flowers, the spring season, etc., etc. And then at frame 15, it's going to be attempting to generate this here, and as short as possible. So this is going where? If you notice, it's connected to our positive prompt, And then we have a negative prompt. Why? Because it is connected to our negative prompt. Again, don't bog yourself down but how does this work? And why is this where it is? No, just accept that this node network has already been designed to function properly. You aren't thinking about how to change the nodes. You're thinking about how to change the data that's stored within the nodes, okay? So After we do our prompts and we have set our image size and we have set our motion module, the next thing we want to do is focus on our generation, the actual diffusion part. So notice that it has steps, CFG. We can change our sampler name just the same as we were doing with stable diffusion in Automatic's web UI, same as we were doing in the prompt travel CLI direct or CLI repo that we were using. It's all the same thing. So don't get bogged down in the details. Just focus on making art. So I'm going to leave the sampler on Euler, but as you can see, or I'm going to put it on Euler A Ancestral actually. But as you can see, there's a lot of options here. You know, feel free to experiment. It's up to you, honestly. We have our denoise level, which we have empty latent images, so I am going to leave it at 1, which is the max value. But we can decrease it, say if we were using reference images, which I will make tutorials on that as well. And we have our steps again and CFG. The CFG I'm going to lower because I think 8 is pretty high up. So let's maybe make it 6. And I'll put the steps at 25. The last node to discuss is the node that controls your outputs. You can have it do a frame rate of 8. You can increase this if you wanted, decrease it if you want. I'm going to leave it at 8. There's also your format. Personally, I like to generate at MP4, but you can generate, as you see, as a GIF, as WebP, as WebM, H.264, H.265 codecs, or WebM. So, and there's the save image. The save image just saves an image alongside of your video that you can actually use to load your workflow, and you'll see that in a moment. So I'm going to queue prompt and let it do its thing. And if you look at the terminal, you'll notice that the ComfyUI terminal is showing us what is happening, how much time is left, and if you notice right here, it's even showing us a progress bar to some extent of what's happening. Now you will see the generation at the end, just give it its time. Very cool. So as you can see, our generation is very clean. Now we can, for the point of showing you how ComfyUI works, if I click generate or queue prompt, nothing happened. Why did nothing happen? Well, because our seed hasn't changed. ComfyUI is very smart in that it's very aware of the data inside of it. And since nothing has changed in our node network, it's not going to generate again. In ComfyUI's eyes, nothing's changed. There's no reason to be wasting performance or resources. But say if I change a word in our prompt, or if I were to change, say, our CFG value to 5 and click queue prompt, notice that it was able to pick up, hey, a change happened in this node, and now it's generating from that point. It's not generating everything over again. It's not going through all the nodes over again. It's only going to where a change was present and forward from there. It changed the way the hand moves a little bit, but notice that we did not change our seed. So let's say that we wanted to change our seed value. Well, we could do it manually, or we can tell ComfyUI to randomize the seed after every generation. Now, if I press queue prompt, it did not do anything yet because technically it still used the same seed, but if I click it again, now it's a new seed and it generated a new seed again, so it's able to generate off of that random seed. So notice the way the seed changed the generation of the image. Now, the next thing that I want to discuss is our frame rate. So currently we are doing a batch size of 16. We can generate longer animations. So if we wanted to generate a longer animation, we would just change our batch size here to say 30. And let's go as far as even including a new prompt. So for consistency, I'm going to copy, I'm going to paste. But remember, there should be a comma here because we are separating these two prompts. So this is one prompt, this is one prompt, this is one prompt. The last prompt does not need a comma. I'm almost entirely sure I may throw an error because it's really just JSON, but I might be wrong. So I'm going to change this to frame 30, and I'm going to add a prompt in. So let's do solo, and we'll generate again. Notice that a green square popped up around the prompt section. It's because it was aware of the fact that there was a prompt there, if you get what I'm saying. It was, sorry, not a prompt. It was aware of the fact that there was a change there, and then it moves on to our sampler. So I can start generating again. That was a very quick overview on ComfyUI and its installation. I just wanted to go over one last thing, or two last things, which are, where does it actually output your files to? So if you go to ComfyUI and inside of the output folder, you'll notice that we have, can I set this to thumbnails? One moment. Okay, you'll notice that we have our files, and we can play those files so we can see what they look like, as well as I mentioned before, it is capable that you can drag a PNG image, and when you drag that in, notice it loads that workflow. And the last thing I'd like to discuss is motion LoRa's, and this will be the only moment that you add a node into the scene. So to add a node into the scene, notice I clicked this dot here, I dragged off, and there is an option here that says ADE AnimateDiff LoRa Loader. That is the only node that you will be adding into this node network for now. There will be more tutorials to explain how and how all this works. For now, just get your feet wet, get comfortable using what's there, don't get bogged down in the details. So what are motion LoRa's? Well, I'm going to go to the original AnimateDiff repo to discuss this. Motion LoRa's allow us control over how generations perceive motion. So, you know, sort of like camera movements. I will note though that it's not perfect, okay? That's the best that I can say. So we're just gonna do one quick test. I'm gonna select the pan left LoRa so that we can see what it does. There's a strain factor here. I'm gonna leave it at 1, but if you wanted to, you could increase or decrease it at your whim. It's all about trial and error. That's the artistic process. So all we're gonna do is just cue prompt. Came out damn good in my opinion. Notice that at some moments there can be some kind of artifacting from text that pops in when you're using the motion LoRa's. Currently, I don't know what necessarily causes that. That'll be a more, again, trial and error kind of thing. So actually, I'll do one more test just to see what, let's do rolling anti-clockwise, see what we get. Just interested. So yeah, that was a very quick overview, or not quick, but faster than usual overview of getting ComfyUI set up, getting the ComfyUI-Manager set up, and getting AnimateDiff Evolved set up with Fizzledorf nodes and all that. But remember, I'm just keeping it simple. I don't want to get too much into the details because beginners get very confused and intimidated. Again, all you should be doing is messing with the numbers in this node network. Don't stress about the nodes, just mess with the parameters. Break it. See what happens when you put the strength to 10. See what happens when you increase the image size and the batch size. See what happens if you switch your clip set settings. Just change things and see what happens. That's the best way to learn. So blessings as always. Thank you guys for the support, and let's keep AnimateDiff evolving, because the better AnimateDiff gets, the better AI art gets, and the better the tooling gets. The better we make AnimateDiff, the more we force companies like Runway and Pika to innovate, because essentially we are showing that we are surpassing the technology that they are making. So stay blessed.